Okay, good evening, everybody. Okay, so today I think we probably have the most important class of the entire course because, as we all know, it's really your team that is going to make you successful. And the hardest thing for an entrepreneur is to figure out how to build his team and how to create a company culture. These are things that he's not being trained to do. He doesn't know what it means to create a company. You walk into IIT, guess what? You already have an IIT culture. You fit into it. When you are an entrepreneur, you're given a blank sheet of paper. You decide what the culture of the company is. Is it going to be an easygoing company? Is it going to be very strict in terms of the rules that you're going to have? What is the culture of your company? It's something that you decide as an entrepreneur. It's your company. And what you set up as the culture of the company is going to be very important for, whether your company is going to succeed or not, right? And you're going to see that it's really something that you can actually control. And, it's probably going to be the first job that you're going to do as an entrepreneur. And what's interesting is that most entrepreneurs don't even know that this was their first job. So they build their team randomly, they create the company culture without even knowing that they're creating a company culture, and then they wonder why it's not working out. And it's very hard to change habits once they are formed. Okay? So today we've got two very interesting, different styles of management that we want to put in front of you in order to explain, what this whole team building and company culture is all about. So, as you all know, my background is entrepreneurship, right? So for the last 25 years, I've just been doing startups and teaching startups, mentoring startups, and actually doing startups, from scratch. So I've been doing that for the last 25 years. I worked in corporate for 10 or 12 years and then did startups. And I graduated in 1975 from IIT Bombay and straight away went to the US, never worked in India. So my experience is, American corporate world, and some of the best companies, General Electric Company and Intel for about 12, 15 years. And then 25 years of creating startups where, we created the Silicon Valley culture. Another person who graduated with me in 1975 was Alok. And Alok graduated from the chemical department. And Alok has spent 40 years working in India in all the top companies of India. So he worked there. And so between Alok and me, I think you have an opportunity to kind of see how companies are actually managed, how they are run, and how, things that are done one way in an entrepreneurial company in a Silicon Valley are done quite differently, but as successfully or even more successfully when you do it in the Indian style, right? So you're going to see a wide range of management styles that, are used in both different places, and which is, I think, quite a lucky thing in my opinion, because, probably most of you might decide to actually take a corporate job in India before you decide to become an entrepreneur here or somewhere else in the world, right? So it's great to be able to learn from Alok's experience, and then also see how you would take all the learnings that you get from the corporate world in India to build an entrepreneurial culture, an entrepreneurial team, back in wherever you started from. Okay, so with that, let me have Alok kind of tell you in about 5 minutes what his background was.
Good evening, everybody. As Raj has explained to you, I'm from IIT Bombay as well, and we are both from the same batch. In my career of about 40 years now, just a little short of that, I have worked in, I can't remember, 4, 5 companies. I started my career in chemical, being a chemical engineer. It was but natural that I would look for something in that area, and I started my life in the petroleum sector. I joined Hindustan Petroleum when it was just nationalized. It was Exxon before that, or what was called ESSO, which was, of course, much before any of you were born. So, I worked in Hindustan Petroleum for about 13 years, during which I picked up an executive MBA from the University of Leeds. And sometime around 1988, I got an opportunity to move over and work with Hindustan Lever. And Hindustan Lever, as you may remember, some of you might even know that, but Hindustan Lever used to have a very thriving chemicals business in the old days. And they were setting up a catalyst plant, a chemicals catalyst plant, to sell to the oil industry, and therefore they needed somebody who wanted to do the business. So I spent about 5 years with Hindustan Lever running their catalyst business out of Haldia. And by that time, the winds of change had already started flowing in India, and with the opening up of the economy, and also HLL's desire to spend most of its energies in the area of detergents and soaps and those and personal products. So their interest in the chemical business was waning, and I used that opportunity to get out of Hindustan Lever and join Reliance Industries, who were at that point in time just thinking about it. It was just a dream yet of setting up a refinery in Jamnagar. I was with Reliance for 13 years. I spent about 5 years out of that in the London office of Bechtel, where we set up the engineering and the procurement organization for the Jamnagar refinery, number 1 as well as number 2. After 13 years, I got an opportunity to move over to Tata Power in a slightly more entrepreneurial role, since they had bid for and got the order for setting up the Mundra Ultra Power Plant. I don't know if any of you know that, but that was at that time the world's largest greenfield power plant. I set up that, and I think during our conversation later on, I'll keep on referring to that because I think it is pertinent to the conversation that we're going to have later on in the afternoon, in the evening. I was with Tata Power for about 6 years, and at the end of 6 years, the vice chairman of Tata Steel called me up and said that if I could, if I wanted to join Tata Steel, part of the group transfer from Tata Power to Tata Steel, because the Tata Steel company had undergone some project disasters which they needed to correct quickly. And so they asked me if I wanted to come across, and I joined them in about 21 months ago. So that's what I've been for the last 21 months, setting up an organization to execute projects. It's been 40 years. Out of these 40 years, 32 years have been in the project field, where I've been associated directly with execution of projects, either in the procurement area or the project management area. And right now, in the past 7-8 years, as a project director and as a senior officer of in the Tata Group. Thank you.
You can see that there's a sharp contrast between our two experiences, even though we started pretty much the same, with IIT, with a BTech from IIT Bombay. Anyway, so basically, what's going to happen is that you come up with an idea, and now you're ready to start building your company. You've done maybe your BMC, or you're just passionate about whatever idea you have. and you're saying, look, I'm going to start a company. So either way, either you plan for it or you just decided to do it. But let's assume that, you've already figured out that you're going to start a company and now you're going to start making profits. So how do you proceed? So the first thing to realize is that it's always better to have a team, a co-founders, a bunch of co-founders that kind of will work together in order to build your company. Some people obviously have been solo founders. I mean, I think one of the companies that Alok has been associated with, Reliance, I think we all know Dhirubhai Ambani was a solo founder of his company, right? And super successful. But if you look at most tech startups and most startups these days, it's all about, a co-founding team, because it's a pretty fast-moving world out there. And so many skills and capabilities are needed, so many issues are popping up all the time, that if you have a team of people and 3 or 4 brains together working to solve them, you'll find that chance of success improve dramatically, right? So the first thing you've got to realize is that even though you may have come up with the idea, in order to really be successful, it's good to have a bunch of people that participate in your team, right? So that's the first thing. So how do you go about choosing your team? Any ideas? Anybody's got some ideas as to how you would go around choosing your co-founding team? Any ideas? Yeah.
First is the same interest, the second is the loyalty, the person you want, the third is complementary skills.
Okay, so loyalty, confidence in the person, who's got some good skills that you need in order to build your
Also same interest.
and similar interests. I think you're hitting some pretty good points, because one of the things that happens is that you're going to spend more time with your co-founders than you're going to spend with your wife or your husband. At least for the next foreseeable 5-10 years, depending. So it's really important that you're compatible, right? And you respect each other. Right? So that's pretty important. Any other things that you would be looking for in a co-founder?
Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead.
Certain degree of tenacity, I guess. Like if you know that this guy doesn't kind of drop out.
That's a very, very good insight, which is, you better find people that are as tough as you are probably going to be, and you're as passionate as you are going to be about, what you're going to be doing. So having the tenacity to stick through the ups and downs, that's a very, very important skill. But there's one skill that most engineers, and I'm an engineer, and typically all my startups, all technical startups, the primary skill that we all don't have naturally is basically marketing, sales, business development, customer care, negotiations. These are all skills that we don't have. We don't have that experience. We've been working 4 or 5 years as to become the best engineer in the world. We've been then working at big tech companies, whatever, developing our skills, but we don't have all of those skills. And if you don't have those skills, typically you don't have friends who are in that field, in the marketing, sales field, etc. But in order to create a successful startup, it's really important to have one of the co-founders who has all these skills, marketing, sales, business development, because those are essentially company building skills. Those are the skills with which you're going to build the company. So the technical team can build the product. But now, along with the product, you build a company. So if you remember from last Tuesday's discussion on the business model canvas, what were the 4 elements of a company? What are the 4 elements of a company?
Key partners, key activities.
So you got the offer, which was the product you're developing, and then what are the other 3 So customers, finance, and infrastructure. Something that will be developed. So there are three other components that need to come together along with the product development. Right? The offer has to be complemented with the customer development, customer service organization, the manufacturing or the development or design of the product, etc., the infrastructure that will get you there, and then somebody who's going to manage the money. So all three have to come together before a product becomes a company. And if everybody's an engineer in your startup team, it's going to be hard to do the other functions as well. So you might be able to develop the best product because you guys are the best engineers, but if you have poor marketing, poor sales, poor financial management, poor execution, you're going to fail. There's no question about it. Because the competition is going to be really good at those other things, and there are lots of examples of companies where the product was bad but had great marketing sales, and it took off, right? And the other company failed. So even with the best product, it failed. So I would say that one of the things that makes sense as an entrepreneur is to keep a slot open for a marketing, sales, business development, customer care kind of a person. And it's really important to realize that the reason why you want to keep that slot open as a founder is because there's a big difference between founders or co-founders and employees. Can somebody tell me what the difference is between founders and employees? What's the difference?
Co-founders own the company.
So they own a big share, portion of the equity, good portion of the equity of the company. What about employees?
Employees, they are paid, they are salaried employees, so they can leave anytime, and there is no responsibility on their part as it is on the co-founders.
Yeah, so basically it's all a question of how much of ownership you have in the company. So these days in the tech startup, typically everybody gets equity. Even employees will get equity. But there's almost a 10x to 100x difference in the amount of ownership that an employee will get compared to what the co-founder will get. So when you have a big portion of the equity, what happens? It means that you're very committed to the company. And you are going to be thinking of the company night and day. You're going to go ahead and try and do whatever possible, whatever sacrifice is necessary. You're going to make that sacrifice in order to make the company successful. It means that you're not going to take salary. You don't take salary. It means that you're going to work Saturday, Sunday, as well as don't take vacation, you're going to do that. So essentially you are willing to make major sacrifices because it's your baby, right? You own that company, right? 10 to 20%, you're owning a big share of the company. So why would why not hire a high quality marketing, business development, sales kind of person, and why try to bring him in as a co-founder?
Because you are not in a good position to judge their deliverables.
You're not in a good position to judge.
Judge what they are giving you. Like, what would be what.
No, I'm trying to say you found somebody who's a good marketing guy and sales guy, and you think he's absolutely the right person. Can you hire him as an employee, or should you bring him in as a co-founder?
Bring him as a co-founder because he will have a judgment about those things which you don't have, and you'll be needing more skill in that area anyways in coming year.
But you will do all of that even as an employee.
Passion. He later went on to work for the competitor and disclose all the secrets.
Passion.
But that any employee can walk out tomorrow and join the competition.
Depends on the person because if he he has the commitment to work, or the, what do you call it, the personality to work as a co-founder. So it is not an easy job to be working as a co-founder, but if anybody can become an employee, but nobody can like come and do the job of co-founder.
I think we're going round and round.
More responsible.
Exactly. So basically, it's more responsible and associated with more responsibility, you get more rewards. So it's actually the rewards function. So let me explain. This is a very important point, which is startups. What is the number one thing that they don't have? Exactly. And a very good marketing sales person, what's he going to have a lot of?
Salary.
Big salary. So as a startup, if you try to hire him as an employee, you don't have the money to pay. Right? His salary will probably equal to your total budget will be his salary. So you really cannot afford to hire a high-level marketing salesperson. But on the other hand, you can give him a big portion of the equity as a co-founder, and then you can convince him that, look, when you become successful, this equity is going to be 100 times more than the salary that he would have got otherwise. So, right? So basically, the thing that asset that startup has got is stock. Your asset is not money. Your asset is stock. And what people who are going to join your company are looking for is a piece of the stock, a piece of the equity, right? So essentially, what I'm saying is that you'll be able to attract a high-level marketing salesperson as a co-founder, but not as an employee. And it's very important that you get the best marketing and salesperson you can to join your team. Once you're successful and have a lot of money in the bank, etc., yes, you can hire all kinds of marketing people, sales people from IIM, Harvard, or Stanford, or whatever it is. But the most important thing is to get these people at the start. Because that's where all the decisions are going to be made, which can make your company a successful company or company that's going to fight. Okay, so the next important question is, okay, you've got 3 or 4 co-founders, 2 or 3 great engineers, a great marketing sales guy. Now, who becomes the CEO? The guy who came up with the idea? Who becomes the CEO?
The guy who can speak.
Huh?
The guy who can speak.
Exactly. So the guy who can speak, and can somebody tell me why is it important that is the guy who can speak?
So he's the face of the company.
Exactly, he's the face of the company. So let me tell you, I had probably an experience of both sides. So the first company that I started, co-founded, was a company called Opti, right? And there were 3 Chinese engineers, and I was brought in to do the marketing sales. Because I was a high-level exec in this business. So they gave me made me a co-founder. So they did the right thing. They kept the slot open for me. And that's why I gave up that high-level job to join them as a co-founder. And but at that time, essentially, one of the Chinese engineers became the CEO. The guy who first started the company and whose initial idea it was. He became the CEO. So we had a situation at Opti where the CEO was Chinese, could not speak one sentence of English properly, and but he was the CEO because he started the company before anybody else. And I'm there with my marketing ability, sales ability, my Intel experience, everything, and I can communicate everything. I've got my MBA, and I'm not the CEO, right? So, you run into 2 places where you have huge problems because the CEO is supposed to do all the strategic selling in a company for a startup. And the second area is raising money. So when you raise money, who's the CEO matters a lot. So we went on this thing called IPO or roadshow, where we are supposed to present the company's business plan, etc., and future prospects for investing to all the biggest investors who have got billions of dollars in their funds to invest in your company. And but I was not the CEO, so obviously they want to meet the CEO. And when they met the CEO, they would say, they would ask him all kinds of questions about marketing and strategy and competition and sales vision and all of these things and roadmap of the company. And he can explain it in Chinese but not in English. But the investors are Americans, right? And Europeans, and they're not Chinese. So basically, every question that they would ask, I would be stepping in to answer. So when we did our presentation to all these investors, he would say the first sentence, welcome everybody, and he would say the last sentence, thank you very much. And basically the whole presentation for our financial, IPO roadshow was done by me, right? So essentially, that was not a long-term tenable strategy. So at some point we had to go ahead and, after we took the company public, we had to, bring in a new CEO to run the company. But the important thing is that I learned a lesson, which is that if you start a company, it really needs to be the person who can present the vision of the company and the strategy of the company better than the best in the founding team. And so when I started the second company, this time I had an IIT Kanpur guy as my co-founder, Dr. Sanjay Mittal. He's a genius in artificial intelligence. He had worked at Xerox PARC. He had come up with the technology. He had written all the patents, papers. He was the guru of configuration technology. But he had been trying for 5 years to start his company in the configuration space. As a solo founder, he could not start it. So the investors would all say, where's your team? And he would say, no, I have the best technology, I'm going to hire the team, etc. And the investors would say, that's too much risk, waiting for you to hire all the people who will help you build your company. So for 5 years, he went to 40 different venture capital firms, and he still could not raise even $1 of investment. And then at one of the conferences, I just finished off tea, and I was sitting there having dinner. He comes and sits next to me, starts talking about his company and his technology and everything. He said, I've got this amazing technology, this internet is taking off, it's going to be a huge business one of these days. So he had the vision, he had everything. And he said, can you help me? Because, I had built up Opti by that time, etc. So I said, sure. And so I gave him some ideas about how to do it. And I said, why don't you do all of this stuff, positioning and all of these roadmaps and everything else, and then, started going. So after about 3 or 4 weeks, he calls me up and says, I really cannot do it by myself. You told me how to build my company, but I can't do it by myself. So can you become my partner? And I said, okay. Thought about it for a little bit. I said, let's do it. Let's start a company together. And I said, I'll put in some money. You put in your technology. We split the company 50-50, and so we started. But I said that this time, I'm going to be this president, chairman.